Hey there. So I thought I'd show how I do some 3D modeling in Blender. Now, this is the NASA Dragonfly model I made, and it's 3D printable, and this is the Ultimate Edition. It has over 200 parts, but I just want to demo like the recreation of a simple piece right here. This is just one of the cameras. All right, so let's get started. I'm going to select this object here and move the cursor to its origin point, and then create a cube. And the cube is a little too small, so I'm going to scale it up. I'm just going to eyeball this a little bit, and then move the origin to the bottom and set the object's Z location to 0. I'm going to just go into edit mode here and move this top face down a little bit, and then bring it in like this. And then I'm just going to move this object to the side so that, again, I'm going to recreate the general idea of this object. It's not going to be the exact recreation. I just want to demonstrate how I create an object like this. So let me go and select this object last and link the material. I'm going to now apply the scale on this object so that any modeling operations we do will behave as expected. So I'm just going to select the top face and inset, and then extrude with E, and then inset again with I, and then another inset, and then another extrusion. So you have to be mindful when you're doing polygon modeling of topology. So you have to kind of set up the geometric detail to facilitate new details. So I'll press Alt-E, extrude faces along normals from that face loop selection there. And now you can see that these are rounded. So this interior here is rounded. So I'm going to dissolve this edge loop because it'll actually be simpler. Select this whole loop here. This is actually an edge ring. So now let's do a bevel. We're going to do like 12 segments is enough. Let's do the same thing over here. And when I do bevel, it's Control B, and I use the middle mouse wheel to control the amount of details or the amount of segments. And then the operator panel, I'm going to choose 32. The trick with 3D printing is you don't want to have too much geometric detail because then it's just an inefficient model. But then if you have too little, there will be facets appearing on the surface. So now I'm going to select this as well. And I'm going to press Shift R to repeat that operation, F9 to bring up the command panel or the operator panel. I'm going to choose half the amount of geometric details so that now the overall density of polygons here is roughly the same. All right, so we've created the general idea of that surface. It's now time to create a screw. So I do create all the objects from scratch. If I was creating another camera right now, I would just duplicate the screw, but I want to demonstrate how I create one. So let's go ahead and move the cursor to that center of that edge there and create a cylinder. We'll have 8 segments, so I'm going to scale it down quite a bit. Okay, scale it down like this. Now remove its origin to the bottom, and then I'll remove it to the cursor, the selection to cursor. Now I'm going to select this top face, bring it down, and then maybe add an edge ring there, or an edge loop that is. Move this down, and I kind of want the object to intersect the surface a little bit. So let's go and scale it up a little bit as well. Okay, I'm going to apply the scale. I'm going to copy this material. Now I'm going to select this object and isolate it. I'm going to press Control 3 for subdivision surface of level 3, and then Shift E 1, enter to crease all those edges, set the crease value to 1. And now I've got to think about topology. So in order to have a cutout for a Phillips screw, I'm going to press J with those 2 vertices selected, and then select these 2 vertices and press J again. And then I can just press Shift R to repeat that operation over here. I'm going to select these faces and then inset and extrude down, and then select these edges in the center. So these edges in the center. Let's go and make sure that we're selecting the edges. This is where wireframe mode can be useful. There we go. And then S for scale, Shift Z to constrain it in the Y and X. So we're trying to actually eliminate Z from the equation here. Let's press GZ to bring it down a little bit. And then maybe this screw could be a little bit thicker. So I'm going to select these 2 loops and press S and Shift Z again to constrain to the X and Y. Okay, so now I'm going to bring up wireframe. Go ahead and move the cursor there. Duplicate this and then move that selection to the cursor. And now I'm just going to duplicate these again and eyeball it in wireframe. There we go. And now it's time to select these objects, and because they've got a subdivision surface modifier on them, I'm going to press Control A, Visual Geometry to Mesh. That's going to bake down all of the details to actual geometric detail. and then select this object last, right click and join. So now this is one mesh. And in the slicer, this intersection will be completely cleaned up and it'll appear that it'll just slice perfectly as one object. So now what I might want to do is double tap A inside edit mode, go to edge selection and go to select all by trait non-manifold. This makes sure that the overall integrity of the model is clean. So it's what's known as manifold. It's a very clean model. So now let's create this detail. So I'm just going to go here, move the cursor to the center of that face, create a cube. You'd be surprised how many objects can be created when you're basing it on like these primitive objects. That's basically how it all works. I think that's actually way too long. Okay, let's apply the scale. And now I'm going to select these two faces and do a Control B for bevel again. And we'll make sure clamp overlap is off. I'm going to select these two edges, Shift R to repeat the operation, and then I'm going to press A to select all, M merge by distance. We should remove 4 vertices. Cool. So I'm going to also make sure that is inside the model a little bit. Let's copy the material, and then same thing. I'm going to move the cursor there, duplicate, and then move it over there. Select these two, select this one last, join. All right, so now I'd say that now it's time to make that nub in the center. So let's go ahead but maybe before we make the nub, I'm just going to duplicate this face and then P to separate the selection. Scale this down a little bit, go into edit mode, move it up, and then apply the scale. So now it's time to isolate this and create that nub. So I'm going to move the cursor here, just make a cube. We'll keep it simple, do a cube, and then maybe something like that, so that it's easy to know which direction that would go in. In this case, it doesn't actually matter, but it would matter when the model is more complex. Now I'm going to keep an eye on the dimensions. I want this to be maybe just 1.2, so that it's basically out of the surface by 0.6 millimeters. I'm going to apply the scale. I'm going to select that edge loop there, and we're going to, not edge loop, it's an edge ring. And then I'm going to bevel that. We're going to give it like maybe 8 segments because we just don't need that many segments. Let's go ahead and link the material. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this, select this object last, and join. And then we've got this duplicate here. I'm going to select this face loop and Alt-S. I'm going to do maybe 0.2 millimeters, so 0.2. And now this is going to be the Boolean object. So let's go ahead and let's move it up a little bit. I usually do maybe 0.55. Okay. So now I'm going to make it appear as a wireframe object. And let's go ahead and select this object last. This is the object it's going to be cutting into. So you might want to move it down a little bit as well. So there we go. It's going to be cutting into this object. So first I move my Boolean cutter to the Boolean cutters collection that I've made over here. I'm going to make sure that collection is visible. I'm going to select this object again. Select this object. Control P to parent, keep transform. And then finally, Boolean. We'll do a brush Boolean, which means that the modifier will still appear. And now at this point, I can move this object over here and everything works out good. We're going to just center that origin there. So there you go. So this would be basically ready to take into the slicer. I'm now going to export the STL. I'm going to just call it test. Scene unit selection only. Go to the slicer, Control I, and we're going to import test STL. And I will slice the plate. And as you can see, the model itself is completely valid. And that is an example of how I make a 3D model in Blender. This is a simple model, but it just gives you an example of what's involved. So thanks for watching.